This question is about emotional comfort eating. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. Craving and giving into eating food that I know is bad is an issue for me. I comfort eat when struggling to cope with my red light feelings and the situations that trigger them. It's almost like my body craves food that my adult mind knows is wrong, but my inner child side needs these in some way to cope with painful thoughts. But then eating the wrong food also affects my mood and energy levels. Can you help?
Yes, stop it. Stop it. For goodness sake, what are you doing? So you know it's wrong. And it's your inner child. And it is like that inner child we talk about in so many videos now. Wanting another sweet, wanting some chocolate, wanting attention, wanting to be loved, wanting your attention. So many of my lovely clients, which are unfortunately nearly always ladies, there are some men, say this terrible thing to me. I want to fill a hole, David. That's why I overeat. I know I'm overeating, but I want to fill a hole. The food will never fill a hole because you haven't got a hole. There is nothing wrong with you. I disagree with the lady. It's not her body that's craving it. It's her inner child that's craving it. And what inner child is craving is to be stroked, is to be loved, is to have attention, is to think that people are giving it what it wants, is to think that if it screams loud enough, it will get it. The problem is it can't make a decision for itself, because when it goes wrong, and when you put on weight, then he gets unhappy about the way you look. Then he says, there you are, look. You don't look after yourself. You don't care for yourself. You can't get into a next dress size or whatever you talk about. So you create this carousel of despair. And I can tell you, when I'm doing these videos, I can't be precise for every single person, of course. I can only give you the overall view. Anyone who's got an eating problem, it's nothing to do with food. And this goes with eating too much and not eating enough and bulimics and all of that. It's nothing to do with food. Listen to what I'm saying. This is to do with controlling your mind and dealing with your inner child. You're not listening to your inner child. You're not addressing the inner child's problems. What you're doing is sticking a bun in the mouth to shut them up. Stop it. You've got to stop it. There's some important work for you to do here. Yeah. This is spiritual work. This is the Shen, the adult side of you, the mother side of you. Rather than keep feeding the child, is to hold the child closely, listen to what she's saying, answer her questions. If you can't answer the questions, that's what we're here for. We will help you answer her questions. But keep putting a donut into the mouth is not going to work. I'm sorry to be so hard. It will not work. Yeah. Stop doing it.
And this is really, it could be overeating, overindulging in foods that is not healthy for you. It could be drinking too much. And you can really extend this
Gambling
to other
too
things,
much,
spending too much, maxing out on your credit card. It's the same issue. So when our inner child is experiencing red light feelings, so they're upset, they're concerned, they're angry, it is our responsibility to parent that child correctly, just as we would parent our own physical child.
Exactly the same.
So if your child comes to you, if you had a physical child who came to you and says, Mummy or Daddy, I'm really, really upset about what's just happened, or I've had a terrible day, I'm really upset, or I'm really worried about this, giving you the kind of red light feelings. As a parent, we would not give that child a cream cake to shut them up.
I've got to be honest, some parents would.
Well, we know,
because that's
most of us know that now is not the authentic way.
Yeah, some parents would
Yeah.
though. They would say, well, go and have some biscuits.
Yeah.
Go and have some bags of crisps because this is what sets the pattern up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is what I hear a lot of the time with my clients who have problems with food is in their childhood, that's exactly what the parents did.
So they're parenting
repeating.
themselves now in the same way that they've learned as a child. And I can absolutely see that.
Because the parent couldn't deal with the issue.
And they didn't want to sit down with the child.
They couldn't speak.
Do the kind of the hard work of communicating and talking through the issue, possibly because they didn't have the answers either. So I guess as a quick fix, your parent, or when you were younger, you may have been given the cream cake or, the Xbox or whatever it is to distract you, but you weren't dealing with the issue at hand. Now, when we're parenting our inner child, we also have to avoid that tendency to go for the quick fix solution, the short-term bit of self-comfort, which leads to no long-term self-worth.
Yeah, because another kind of and I think food does it, but drink as obviously does it, and drugs as obviously does it, because there is a kind of almost a body dependency comes on on the food. So what you're actually doing, you're not solving a problem, you're creating another problem. Yeah. It's like smoking. It's like many people say, "Oh, I smoke, David." Well, why do you smoke? Because it calms me down. Well, it doesn't calm you down because you've instead of having the one problem now, you've created two problems. You've created more confusion, more in the maze of confusion. You're sitting on the carousel, and this is why you've got to have clear thinking. This is the difference with the Wu Wei model. You've got to clear all this smoke and mirrors out of your mind and be absolutely clear. When has eating a cake, a biscuit, an extra portion of chips, when has that ever solved anything? Yeah. When has that actually made anything better, even in the moment? Because as you're putting that food in your mouth, you're not telling me you feel good. You're not telling me you're enjoying every mouthful. In fact, this is one of the solutions I had about 4 years ago with a client who convinced me that she absolutely loved cream cakes. And this is the solution we came to. Well, once a week, why don't you go and treat yourself to a cream tea and savor every piece of that cake? And we settled on that, and she agreed with me that that's what she would do. She did it 3 times, 3 weeks, and then she said, I don't need to do it anymore because I don't actually like the taste of cream. 3 weeks ago, she was telling me she couldn't live without the taste of cream. This is why you've got to deal with the problem. Yeah. Don't stay with the froth. Go down to the problem. And this is what will change your life forever. Stuffing a pizza in your mouth will not change your life forever. You just put you onto the carousel. And then when you look in the mirror, can I tell you what I say? I'm going to say this. This is what I say to my clients who are overweight. I say, when you come out of the shower, stand in front of a long mirror, a full-length mirror, jump up and down and look in the mirror and say, this is the weight that I choose to be. This is the weight I choose to be. And they go, oh my God, I could never do that. I say, why? That's what you're choosing. They go, well, I'm not choosing. I can't help it. The food. No. You are choosing it. Take responsibility. Remember what we're saying on all of these videos. When you're overweight through comfort eating that this lady is giving us a question on. So again, I'm not talking about all hormones and all like that. I'm talking about comfort eating. Yeah. When you are choosing to use food to comfort you, you are mistaken. But listen, you already know this, don't you? I'm not telling you something new.
It's putting... We have this knowledge, and as I say, most people nowadays know it's not good to feed their children lots and lots of sweets and cream cakes. But when we don't apply the same principles to ourselves, and I think it comes back to this thing that sometimes, for me, this kind of happens more in the evening. I have the more, shall I just have this, or, shall I just have this cake, or I'll just go and have a glass of wine or whatever, even though I know it's not going to do me any good. It's harder in the evening. And I know one of our members has said that they are very disciplined in so many, compassionately self-disciplined and on top of things in so many other areas of their life. But when it comes to their diet, they've noticed that the inner child is kind of saying, oh, I deserve
Very
a treat.
persuasive.
I just need a treat. Oh, just this one time. Oh, it'll all be fine. And, this lady said, is that because the inner child kind of knows, it's a bit sneaky, it knows that it can't get its way in all these other aspects of your life where you're really being disciplined with your thinking. But when it comes to perhaps eating, or when it comes to perhaps eating in the evening when you're a little bit more tired, that's when the inner child tries to wheedle its way in, just like a kind of a bit of a naughty child, really.
Well, I think we've done a video on when the child will wait till you're tired, or at the end of your tether, or run down, and then it'll go, well, I've got you now, and then it'll go, oh, you deserve a treat. You've had a hard day. Why don't you go and buy some tea cakes? Oh, just one tea cake. Oh, just one Pringle. Let's buy. As if how many times have you said this? If we buy a tube of Pringles, it will last us all week, won't it? Yeah. It doesn't last a night. Because, just one more. And this is the discipline. There's nothing wrong with a cream cake. There's nothing wrong with a tea cake. There's nothing wrong with a couple of Pringles. But if you're doing it for emotional eating, if you're doing it to do something with your emotions, you might as well, I don't know, put your hand in the fire for your emotions. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm saying this, but you already know, because if you're doing this, you've been doing it for a long time. Has it worked once? Just once? Has it worked even once? How many millions of times hasn't it worked? Whether it's a glass of wine, there's nothing wrong with a glass of wine. There's nothing wrong with a cream cake. Let me get it right. There's nothing wrong with going out and having a nice meal. But if you're doing it to comfort yourself, if you're doing it to try and deal with your emotions, you're going externally again. How can food deal with your emotions that you're creating? This is a completely misunderstanding on your behalf.
So we know it's not a good choice. So how would someone practically work through the situation whereby, say, they've had a hard day at work, they've had a few challenges at work. Normally they'd come home, pour themselves a big glass of wine and have a takeaway or something unhealthy to eat as a compensation to make themselves feel better, or as a treat, because they've had such a hard day, even though they know it's actually going to make them feel worse. It's not going to really help the situation. Okay. In that moment, when you get that thought to go down the familiar path, what do we do? What does that person do?
I can give you a practical thing now that we did with a client about a year ago. So again, I can't say this will work on everybody, but the scenario that Alex has just pulled out the air is an actual scenario that worked with a client. She would do exactly that. This is the solution that we came up. She poured the glass of wine and she said, I am going to drink this wine. But before I drink this wine, I'm going to write down why I think this glass of wine will help or cure. What are the emotions this glass of wine will help and cure? She did that, I think, for 5 days, and then decided that she didn't need the wine. She could solve the problems without the wine. So that's just one solution. We've got many solutions. Write in and we'll give you a solution, because everybody is slightly individual. But the umbrella thing is, you've got to find the reason why you are choosing to eat that cream cake, drink that wine, smoke that cigarette. If you do not find that reason, being abstaining will not last. This is why, in general, for a lot of people, not everybody, diets work for some people, but you've got to deal with the underlying issue. Because then if you just disdain and hold it for a week or month, and then you go back and you start doing the same thing because you haven't solved the problem.
I think that's a great first step exercise you've suggested there, and I can see how it would work, because sometimes people might say, oh, David, you're asking me to do lots of heavy, deep work here. I have no idea where to begin with this self-inquiry process, rather than going down the familiar track of comfort eating. But if you can start to even just map out, what do I believe having this cream cake, this takeaway, this glass of wine, buying this new dress, whatever it is you're kind of turning to as an avoidance, if you can begin to map out what you think emotionally that's going to solve, and then perhaps even then as the next step, start to think about, well, what's my thinking here? What's my thought processes?
And do I have any alternatives?
Yeah.
And can I do any? And what we did with this lady, because she said she couldn't stop drinking the glass of wine, is to say, I am going to drink this glass of wine, but before I drink it, I am going to answer this question, or answer the question as I'm drinking it. And for her, it worked in about 5 days. And why it worked is because you're clearing the confusion. You're taking responsibility. Nobody's trying to stop you from drinking a glass of wine or eating a cream cake. I'm not trying to stop you.
You haven't got that kind of sense of resistance.
Exactly.
Or the kind of push-pull thing, which your inner child then plays on because it digs its heel in and say, this is not fair. It's almost like you're engaging with what the human-centered mind or inner child wants. You're not saying absolutely not. You're engaging, but you're starting to question. Yeah. Okay.
And so what, as in a way, what you're doing to your inner child, you're giving it attention, but you're giving it the wrong attention. So your inner child wants attention.
Yeah.
You're giving it attention, but you're giving it the wrong attention. So Alex mentioned at the beginning of this about, and what happens a lot now is when the children come home and the parents are tired, they'll go and sit the kid in front of a video game or something. So they're giving them attention, but they're not giving them that correct balanced attention to speak to the child and to answer them and to get it right for them. So for yourself, please take time, look after yourself, care for yourself. If you want to comfort, find out the reason what it is that you want comforting, and then look at the alternatives. Yes, you could have a cream cake. Yes, you could go and solve the original problem. That's what I would prefer you to do, and we can help you.
And then you're on the golden thread process. So I'm trying to comfort some uncomfortable or painful red light feelings I've got, David. Then we would normally say, well, let's begin the golden thread process here. What is the thought behind the red light feelings?
And what's the belief?
And let's work down and question to get to the core belief. Once you solve that, then the desire to comfort eat, to treat yourself goes away.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully that's given you some good practical advice and tips. If you can relate to this particular issue and some of the scenarios we've discussed, please comment below, and I'm sure your thoughts and your shares will help other people too. If you have any more questions on this topic, please post and we'll always be very happy to answer them for you.